Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic. In today's video, we're going to take one step closer to completing our Artifact Tokens Matter deck around Garth One-Eye for our all-time favorite format, EDH. What's up, MTG BC? That is the MTG Burgeoning community. Here we are. We're taking another step closer to completing our Artifact Tokens Matter deck with our commander here, Garth One-Eye. If you missed any of the previous installments of this current deck building series, you can click the links in the description below and bring yourself right up to speed. So far, very briefly, here are the cards already included in this 5-color EDH deck. Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer, Dockside Extortionist, Monologue Tax, Monologue Tax, Tago, Goblin Weaponsmith, Tireless Tracker, Tireless Provisioner, so we got some tireless creatures here in this first few, Fey Offering, Search the Premises, Sahili the Gifted, Tezzeret, Artifice Master, Brass's Bounty, Old Gnawbone, Lonus, Cryptozoologist, Academy Manufactor, Inspiring Statuary, Krark Clan Ironworks, Anointed Procession, Storm the Vault, Galazeth Prismari, Second Harvest, Urza Lord High Artificer, Goldspan Dragon, Shimmer Dragon, Whir of Invention, Rise and Shine, Jirapur Ether Grid, Mechanized Production, Revel in Riches, Hellkite Tyrant, Marionette Master, Tezzeret Master of the Bridge, Hellkite Igniter, Reckless Fireweaver, Aurelius Fury, Comet Storm, Debt to the Deathless, Assassin's Trophy, Beast Within, Generous Gift, Vindicate, Cyclonic Rift, Merciless Eviction, Austere Command, Blasphemous Act, and Confirm Suspicions and Spell Swindle. Now, in the comments section, there was quite the, I wouldn't want to say uproar, but quite the acknowledgement that we are including counter spells in a deck from a creator in a format where I disdain counter magic. I like to think of these two spells as tactical artifact token creators, not counter spells. That will allow me to sleep a little better at night, and I hope it does the same thing for the MTG BC. So those are the cards already included in the deck, and today we are going to finish the 99 of spells and then return next time to completely install the land base and bring the deck building series to an end. So before we get into our mana ramp and some additional mana spells, there are a few more cards that we're going to include that are going to help synergize and enhance what we want to do with this deck. Potentially looking at a couple of other alternate win conditions, but definitely some spells that are going to help tie all the loose ends together, making this deck that much stronger. And the first card we're going to include is Cranioplating. It's an equipment for 2 colorless. An equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact we control. We can equip for 1, or at instant speed, we can tap 2 black and attach Cranioplating to target creature we control. In a deck that is built around amassing a huge number of artifact tokens, why not put in an artifact such as this that can get slapped onto one of our creatures at instant speed for potentially lethal combat damage? It just makes more sense to include Cranioplating than it makes to not include it. So we're going to put it in there. I think we can look at Cranial. Why do I want to keep saying Arcanial? I don't even think that's a word. Cranioplating, we can look at that as another alternate win condition in a deck that's already filled with them. Speaking of win conditions, the next card, well, I'll let you guys tell me in the comment section below what you think of Mayhem Devil. 1 black and a red for a 3/3 devil that reads, whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, this creature deals 1 damage to any target. So even if this were whenever we sacrifice a permanent, it would still find its way into this deck because we have the ability to sacrifice so many of our artifact tokens for so many other ways. I mean, just sacking a treasure for mana triggers Mayhem Devil. Just sacking a fetch land will trigger this. And then when it says whenever any player does it, this just makes Mayhem Devil not only a threat to the board, but also a threat to all of our opponents because we could wipe out any one opponent if we amass enough artifact tokens. Mayhem Devil is spell number 2. Next up, not necessarily a win condition, but just another way in which to generate some more of those sweet, sweet artifact tokens we want to see in this deck. That's going to be Malcolm Keen-Eyed Navigator. 2 and a blue, 2/2 flyer that reads, whenever 1 or more pirates we control deal damage to our opponents, we create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. And as you remember, we have more than just Malcolm as a pirate in this deck. So there is some, some synergy with some of the other creatures that will allow us to create treasure tokens incidentally just by engaging in combat. All right, and the last non-ramp spell to be included in this deck, it is Vedalken Orrery. Artifact for 4 colorless, we may cast non-land cards as though they have flash. And my motivation for including this card was reflecting back on some of our alternate win conditions that when put out onto the battlefield, they usually say at the beginning of your upkeep, ... if you meet these certain criteria or these certain requirements, then you win the game. So in my mind, this is that kind of says to your opponents here, if you have any removal spells, make sure you get rid of this right away, even if it's sorcery speed on your turn, because if not, then when it gets back to my turn, I'm going to win the game. I don't want to go like that. I want to make it so that our opponents are unable to use any potential sorcery speed removal on our win condition spells, like Mechanized Production, like Revel in Riches. So with Vedalken Orrery on the battlefield and under our control, we can cast either one of those 2 or some of our other alternate win condition spells at the end of our last opponent's turn, and unless anyone has a counter spell or anyone is playing with instant enchantment or permanent removal, then it's going to click over to our turn, our upkeep, and our victory. So Vedalken Orrery is going to help us kind of sidestep at the beginning of your upkeep by disallowing our opponents any opportunities to go after those cards with sorcery speed removal. Okay, here we go. So those are the spells, and now it's time to ramp up. So because we are in 5 colors, conventional wisdom in Magic would say you're in green, so make sure you play every single green ramp spell you could possibly play. We're not going to do that. We want to make sure that we inundate the deck with artifacts because this is an artifact deck. We have a lot of synergy with the artifacts that we're trying to play with here. We have a lot of synergy in a lot of ways in which to use artifacts. So let's make sure that the majority, not all, but the majority of our spells that are going to help smooth out the mana and ramp our mana are going to be artifacts. So let's start with a Mox Opal. Casting cost of 0, and as long as we control 3 or more artifacts, which we're going to do, this will tap for 1 mana of any color. Mox Opal is in. Following Mox Opal, we're going to include a Chrome Mox, same mana value, and this has Imprint. So when Chrome Mox ETBs, we may exile a non-artifact, non-land card from our hand, which is very possible for us to do. And then we can tap Chrome Mox to add 1 mana of any of the exile card's colors. This is going to help with mana smoothing. This is going to help with mana ramp. And it also is an artifact. Of course, the greatest artifact in our format, Sol Ring. Don't need to talk about that. It's a must play, so there it is. Additionally, Arcane Signet. That's one of the other best artifacts in our format. Arcane Signet taps for a mana of any color, of course. For our deck it does because we're playing 5 colors. And we're going to include a Felwar Stone. It's going to be very unlikely that we sit down at a table full of colorless commander decks that are only playing with utility lands and wastes. So at some point, we're going to be able to add most likely 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, because at the table there's going to be some variety in decks. Minimally, this will give us one of the colors we need, and we're playing with all 5 of them, so it makes sense to include a Felwar Stone. Next up, we're going to include a treasure map. Okay, this is an artifact for 2, and we can tap 1, tap this, scry 1, and then we can put a landmark counter on treasure map. Then, if there are 3 or more landmark counters on this artifact, we can remove those counters, transform treasure map, and create 3 colorless treasure tokens. So just by doing a little bit of work, by getting some landmark counters on this artifact through the ability of scrying with its ability, we create 3 treasures, and then we can transform this into Treasure Cove, which taps for a colorless mana, which will be fine, but more importantly, and the purpose why it's in this deck, is we can tap this to sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. Keeping our hand filled will be of paramount importance in a deck that we can expect to ramp very quickly and establish a pretty big board state very early into the game. And having the treasure map in the early going of that will allow us to smooth out our draws by scrying, creating some additional treasure tokens, and then eventually being able to tap that land to sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. Next, we have a Thought Vessel, because we have the ability to have a lot of cards in our hand, and I don't like discarding my cards just because the rules say you can't have more than 7. So we include Thought Vessel as a mana rock to allow us to say, no, I'll keep as many cards in my hand as I want. Thank you very much. All right, 3 spells to go. The next artifact we're going to include is going to be a doozy of a spell to have for this deck. Idol of Oblivion. For a mana value of 2, we can tap this to draw a card only if we created a token this turn. Was this card not designed for an artifact tokens matter build like this? We are going to be creating artifact tokens nearly every single turn, and all we have to do is invest 2 mana into this and then turn it sideways to draw a card. Phenomenal addition to this deck. And if it gets to the mid to late game and the cards aren't as important to us as impacting the battlefield, then we can tap 8, sacrifice Idol of Oblivion, and create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. For all intents and purposes, however, Idol of Oblivion is included in this deck for its drawing mechanic, and not so much for its ability to create an Eldrazi spell. All right, and we are down to our last 2, and these will be the 2 spells that we will include that are not artifacts. They are actually true green ramp spells, and they're not very much different. It's going to be 1 copy of Farseek, which searches our library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card and puts it onto the battlefield tapped, which, let's be honest, our targets here will be the Triomes. We are looking to get a Triome into play, because that gives us access to 1 of any 3 colors of mana. So Triome is option number 1 through 5 with Farseek. Same thing with 3 visits. We can search our library for a forest card and put that onto the battlefield. Now here we can't pick every single Triome, but we can still pick a number of them. And again, you want to prioritize the Triomes because of the mana fixing in this 5-color deck over things like basic lands or shock lands. All right, MTGBC, this is it. We are 1 step closer to completing this 5-color Garth One-Eye Artifact Tokens Matter build. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Next up, we will install the mana base and complete the 99. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.